Doc here with the review again for the first exam. We have a request. How can we memorize ratios a little easier? Let's go to downloads and let's go to chapter F where we look at these ratios, and let's find the chart that has all of the ratios for us. So we come down here and find it. Looks like we have something here. This should do it right here. Well, when you study anything, there is memorization, and I have to be honest and say there's memorization. For example, when one studies Spanish, one has to memorize certain words in foreign languages, but it does help to look at some tricks and things and how others memorize. And I have a way to memorize some of these, but you do have to memorize some. Uh, there's no shortcut in life here with some things. You have to do some memorization. Well, I would organize these based on the numbers being simple. For example, 1 1 is unison. That's the first one. That's do. All right. And then from that, I know that the next nice combination of numbers, 2 to 1, is my octave. That's up here. See, so that's kind of easy to know that an octave is a doubling. See, the doubling rule, your octave rule. So that kind of gets you two of them. And then I focus attention on the blues, because the blues uses the 1, and this is referred to as the 1. Do is the 1. This is do starting from the next scale, so that's 1 again. So see, the next would be then the 5 and the 4. See, the 5 chord and the 4 chord. And the 5 chord is really the nice chord away from home that if you hit it, you want to go back to home. So if that's like the next one, the 5, if you remember that from like the Mary Had Little Lamb examples I played class, things like that, then what are the next nice numbers that come after 2 and 1? Well, it's 3 and 2, see? 3 and 2 is next, so that has to be then the 5th, because the aesthetics of the 5th being pleasant, 3 to 2, beautiful, simple numbers. And after 3 to 2, next is 4 to 3. And the 4 to 3 in the blues, see, it's the 4. See, it's the 1, the 4, 5, and the 4. So that gets me this next one. And I'm kind of on a roll here. These three kind of go together. The next one here, if you add 1 to each of these, you get 5 to 4, and that's the third. So you can think of this little grouping in the middle. If we start with 1 to 1 and then go 2 to 1, we're up here, but then we're going to jump to the 5th, 3 to 2, then add 1 to each, 4, 3, add 1 to each, 5 to 4. So that gets us these three, and what's left are 3 more. Now here's my trick for this next one and this last one. I noticed that if you have a pie, you have 8/8 of a pie. And if you add an eighth, you have 9/8. And if you have 2 pies, you have 16/8. Because you have 8/8 plus 8/8, you have 16/8, 2 pies. And if I take an eighth away, I have 15/8. So I think of these two here as coming in from the end. I add an eighth of a pie to get 9/8 of a pie, because 8/8 is a whole, and then 1/8 is an extra eighth of a pie, it's 9/8. And if I start here with my doubling, see my other dough up here is twice the other one, so I have thinking 2 pies. I have 2 pies now, and I want to take away, I want to move to the left, I want to decrease, so I take away an eighth of a pie. So if I have 2 pies, I have 8/8 plus 8/8, I have 16/8. 16/8, I can serve 16 people. But if I take 1 away, I can only say 15 people, so it's 15/8. And then there's one oddball, and the oddball is brute force, 5 to 3. But there is another way perhaps to get this, but I think it's probably too complicated. I think just brute force is probably the best. But what is left in terms of our simple numbers is 5 to 3. We would discard things like 4 to 1 because that's way out here. But 5 to 3 would be something between do and do prime. And that's the last one that we have really with the simple numbers, because we had 5 to 4, up to 5. Numbers from 1 to 5 here is what I mean. You take 5, 5 to 4 is already covered. 5 to 3, 5 to 2, takes you out of the octave because it's 2.5. You can't go more than 2. So, and you can't have 5 to 1. That's more than 2. So that might be one way. The only one that's left is 5 to 3 when you think of the numbers from 1 to 5. So that has to go here.